everyone. Welcome back to the Content Matters podcast. Andy Crestodina is the co-founder and chief marketing officer of Orbit Media, a web design and development agency in Chicago. If you've read about digital marketing, or anything digital marketing, then you probably have likely heard or read or saw a webinar with Andy. He provides lots of tactical and strategic advice for marketing, and he's talked about everything from SEO to lead gen, demand gen, and most recently ABM, along with lots of content strategy advice, which is why we were happy that Andy joined us on the Content Matters podcast. I got a chance to pick his brain on just about everything I mentioned there and probably a little bit more. So there is something in here for everyone. Enjoy. Thank you very much for joining us, Andy. I think this is probably one of the most exciting interviews I've had.
Really? I'm excited too.
And mainly because I read and I see so much of your writing and your content around these topics that it's just fascinating to hear and see the research that you're doing and learning about. So I think we'll have a lot of fun. And I'm sure I'll learn some new things in the process. So my first question with you is, we've got a ton, you share a ton of great information on SEO, on content marketing, on lead generation, everything marketing. And your pieces they're so long and they're so in depth, and not just from you, but from other members with Orbit Media, your company. So it's just kind of wondering what makes you decide to write that kind of content, and what is Orbit Media's content strategy?
It's a rarely asked question, Barb. So I appreciate that. So it was, we started in 2001, and 2006, 2007, I realized that I needed a way to keep in touch with people over long periods of time, because as a web development company, they only need our services once every 3, 4, 5 years. So it wasn't even really called content marketing so much at the time, or that seemed sort of new. I just thought of it as, I'm going to make a newsletter. What should the newsletter be? An invitation to read an article. So newsletter plus blog. And even if they don't click and read it, it will make me at least slightly visible to these people who may need me again someday. So we had an email list of just people we'd worked with and friends, maybe 200 people. So what should I write about that would keep the attention of people who, every so often need web development services?
Right.
I can't just write about web design, or the only readers I'd have would be web designers. So I need to write about other things that my audience cares about. And the strategy quickly evolved into, our mission statement sounds like this. We are where digital marketers find practical advice about content, analytics, and web design to get better results from their websites. So the strategy sounds like this. We sort of build cars and teach drivers ed. We built, once the site is live, these are the things that help you get results from your site, the content strategy things, the analytics things, the SEO, influencer marketing, email marketing, social media, account-based marketing, all the related digital marketing topics. Mm-hmm. The problem with my strategy is that I become relevant for things that I don't do for people. And right. I generate leads sometimes for services, hey, we need some content strategy workshop or something, or can you do that? Or is this a service you offer? And we really are just web design and development. Some optimization for some key clients. It's only if we built their website. That team is always busy. So the depth of the articles evolved over time when we realized just from the data what was working, and the competition is fierce. So there are people who are just extremely good at writing helpful, practical articles with step-by-step instructions for big challenges that marketers face. Mm-hmm. So over time, our content has gradually gotten more visual with images and charts, more research-driven, lots and lots of studies we do, longer and in-depth, more detailed, and also more collaborative, where we include contributors to almost everything we write.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. Yep. It's the articles are fantastic because they're just packed with information and things that you can actually walk away and start to implement in your projects. So I really love them. And I won't say
Thank
I've
you.
read absolutely every one of them, but I have every
Of
one of
course.
them bookmarked. I have every one of them bookmarked. Go back there and read that one and look for those 2 or 3 key pieces of information that you want to kind of make what you're doing even better. So that's great.
Thank you for
Um,
that feedback.
yeah.
Thank you.
So SEO is a big topic and
Mhm.
critical for websites, obviously. Um, but it feels like it's changing so much that it's getting confusing. Like what are you seeing kind of as the biggest challenges or mistakes that marketers are making when they're trying to optimize for SEO?
Well, I think it's a bit overstated how fast it changes. People say Google's algorithm gets updated 200 times a year,
Mm,
or they say 500 times a year, or there's another core update coming, and people react strongly, or they think they need. So here's a common mistake: people think that they need to keep paying an SEO firm $5,000 or $10,000 a month to keep their rankings. They don't. That's not true. That was never true. It's a weird idea. If
huh,
you got results from an SEO company and you had a successful engagement, there is no SEO maintenance. Google doesn't change like that. There's not a thing. So everyone hearing this should just remember, you do not need to keep paying your SEO company to keep ranking. A lot of people just go on autopilot and they've got it in their budget and they just keep sending checks to the SEO firm. And so it's one of the reasons why I think SEO firms get away with a lot, and that that's kind of, there's some shady players in that industry, quite honestly.
yeah.
But the big change in SEO actually isn't so much a change in the algorithm in terms of rankings, but it's in terms of what is appearing in Google search results. SERP features, search engine results page features, are just everywhere. I mean, you search for something and you see, ads at the top and images below that, and then a people also ask box, and then a map with a 3-pack below it, and then some interesting finds and a knowledge panel on the right. And the number one ranked website is like literally 3,000 pixels down the page.
Right.
So we are competing with Google now in ways that we never had to before. Google is sending less traffic. Well, no one knows. They say they're sending more traffic, but it feels to a lot of us as if the click-through rate from these rankings has declined because there's so much visual noise in a search results page today. So is there a way? I mean, how do you adapt to that? I think it's mostly about shifting your strategy to target key phrases for which there are long, detailed answers. The longer and more specific the phrase, the less likely the search results page is to have so much noise in it. But that's not a ranking thing. That's not an algorithm change. That's
Mm,
just Google keeping the visitor on Google products for longer, which is just the context of search. And we can complain about it, but that's like a farmer complaining about the weather. What are you going to do?
yeah. So is it still critical to rank on page one if you're not even ranking, can't even get to the top unless you're doing like pay-per-click ads or something like that?
Well, the size of the prize is smaller for many key phrases.
Right.
So if you're just using rank tools that track your rank and you say I ranked number one last year and I'm still ranking number one this year, but your traffic is down, you need to dig deeper and look at the click-through rate from these specific key phrases. And if that's declined, it may be because of SERP features. Go search for those phrases and see what you see. So it's still worth vast amounts of demand and money, and the success potential is enormous because there's still billions of searches every day or something. But but it's just headwinds. It's just the reality of search. It's just become a more challenging channel because of search results page features.
Right. So a question that kind of goes along with that then is like when you're creating web pages in WordPress or whatever, and you use a tool like Yoast that does that SEO kind of, are you green, yellow, red? Like, is that important, or is it more important to you don't have to have a green SEO button from Yoast to say that you're ranking for SEO. We need to stop thinking about it so structured and checkboxy like.
Yeah, as if it was so prescriptive
Yeah.
that, oh, this plugin in WordPress gave me green, it's a green light, therefore I did my job today. That's a ridiculous idea. I don't like Yoast for that reason. People think that because Yoast gave them a green bar, that their page will rank. But here's the problem. Yoast has no idea if you have sufficient credibility to rank for that key phrase. Yoast doesn't analyze keyword difficulty, and Yoast does not know your domain authority. So you may be optimizing their page for a phrase that you have 0% chance of ever ranking for, but Yoast gave you the green line. Yoast also isn't analyzing your content for the related phrases, the semantically adjacent terms, which is critical for SEO today.
Right.
It's just Yoast is just a snippet preview tool for me. You can see the title tag and the meta description and how you will look if the page ranks. It's handy for that, but it is completely insufficient. You can get, if Yoast is your main SEO tool, you're probably not getting great results.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't agree with that. But there are so many SEO tools out there trying to figure out which one, and I mean, they're all similar in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta, I guess, pick one and try it and see how it works for you. Decide if that's the right one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's switch from the technical aspects to talking about storytelling in our business writing. But sometimes it feels like you're either technically structured and SEO and perfect, or you're telling stories and one comes at the expense of the other one. Like, is there a happy marriage of the two? Like, how do you kind of find that, and how do you optimize for SEO without, destroying your
Mm-hmm.
story?
Yeah, well, there's so let's say that you're targeting a key phrase and you're making a page and it's about a service. Let's say you're writing an article about or you're writing a service page about business writing for lawyers or something like this, and you've determined it's a phrase that you have a chance of ranking for. So now you're going to go create that page. The page has two jobs. Part of it is the cheese and part of it's the mousetrap, to your point. We have to indicate relevance and target the key phrase and make it a great page for search, or else it will have low traffic. But in doing so, to what extent do we compromise our writing? I think one important thing to keep in mind is that the visitor to this page is not that likely to read every word. So there are things that you can do that for the sake of search that we shouldn't worry too much about its implications for storytelling, because really, maybe 15-20% of your visitors are going to be all the way, going to read the, words 1,000 to 2,000. They're farther down the page. So we have to be realistic about the percentage of words that an audience will read. There's some studies that show maybe only 20 to 25% of the words that we're writing are actually getting read. It's a bit cynical, but
Yeah.
that's from that's the Nielsen Norman group. That's still a lot of people, right? Even 20% of people, that's going to be thousands of visitors over the years. But I think there's actually a happy convergence in lots of ways, because Google wants you to write a detailed page, and stories have lots of details. What doesn't work in search is not a problem of too many stories, but it's not enough content. Thin content has a huge disadvantage. So I don't worry about the people who tell their story and make the case and explain the history and the origin of the company and the reason that they're in business. Writing out a longer story will give you more keyword opportunities. I do worry about the people who think that 400 words is enough to compete for a relevant phrase, and it's just not that likely anymore.
So the answer, or the point, is then that if you want people to read your work and you want to rank well, you need to go deep and really not just, like you said, not skim the surface, but actually go really deep into the content and make sure people are understanding what you're trying to say.
You do, and once you've written a very detailed page, if you go back and make sure that it's optimized, you may find that to optimize it well, you do need to compromise some of the language. You may need to kill your darlings, as writers say.
Yeah.
So the header, don't write a clever header, H1 tag, for your page. Write a simple, descriptive, keyword-focused header. So you may have a headline that you think is clever and fun and sounds like a tagline and triggers the right emotion, but that's not the place to be clever. Be clever in your subheads. The header has another job to do, which is to both tell the visitor they're in the right place and to indicate to the search engine what the page is about.
Thank you to the sponsor of the Content Matters podcast. Ingenix is a leading provider of agile content management solutions. You can use Ingenix CMS to manage and deliver modern websites, customer support portals, knowledge bases, and more. Ingenix software enables content reuse, true mobile and multi-channel content delivery, and insightful content discovery. To learn more about how Ingenix can support your content experiences, visit ingenix.com.
I had a person analyze a homepage that I was working on, and she's a conversion copywriter. And when she went through my homepage, and I just watched a video back of what she did, she basically said, okay, I can tell this page is written for SEO, but it's not written for conversion copywriting. So it's like, we hear all these different things: conversion copywriting, content marketing, SEO, and as a marketer, you're trying to think of, how do I best create my content that it's supporting all of these things, which are important. Like, I just find it can be very kind of confusing to figure it all out.
Well, there are things that are good, that are where search is more important than conversion. I think the header is a good example. There are other areas where conversion is more important than search, like calls to action.
Right.
There's no such thing as a search optimized call to action. Google ignores the links on the page, when considering what the page is about. So it is a balance, and it is difficult, and there's no single answer except to say that long content both ranks higher and converts better. And as you write the page, you just need to pick your battles. If you're looking for a place to inject 4 or 5 related key phrases, maybe do that farther down the page. If you're looking to include some unexpected differentiating copy, put that closer to the top of the page. But save the header for search and the subheads for psychology.
That's good. That's good advice. Cool. All right. So let's look at the, I watched Content Marketing World this year virtually. I did not go on site. I don't think I can get into the States right now anyway, but Robert Rose did his keynote, and in his keynote, he talked about the most successful content marketing is continually changing and continually evolving. So you can't just write your content marketing strategy once and say, there, I've done it for the year. You've got to be constantly changing. But that makes it really hard to kind of make a plan and be able to follow that plan, but then you have to, adjust, adapt really quickly. Like, what advice would you give to people who are trying to do that?
Well, I think that it is important to go back and revisit a strategy. If at any point your goals change, you definitely need a new strategy. So there's some, for example, right now, a lot of companies are struggling to hire. Okay, if that's a goal, we need a strategy for that goal. I mean, if a strategy is just a plan to reach a goal, that's how I define it, Barb. When I hear the word strategy, I think that's a fancy word. And then my brain turns it into simple words. Plan to reach goal. Oh, okay.
Right.
So if my goals change, I need a new plan. So that's a time when you might adapt your strategy. If you have gotten results at something, it's going to be faster to get more results by repeating that or repurposing that. So that's a time where your strategy might change. COVID, of course, gave us opportunities and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So once lockdown started, I don't have to go to conferences. I have 15% more time in my life because I'm not traveling. Oh, what should I do? YouTube. How can I do YouTube? Well, I'm going to repurpose some presentations. Where should I post these? I'm going to embed them on my existing high-ranking pages. It only took me a few months to build up a pretty successful YouTube channel because of the opportunity. There are existing high-ranking pages. I have a bunch of presentations, and now I have a little more time. So it's not that we automatically must revisit our strategies, but when something changes, look at that and say, is that a new goal? If yes, I must change my strategy. Or is this a new opportunity? If yes, I should change my strategy. But quite honestly, Robert Rose might think I'm crazy, but my content strategy did not change for many years. It was the same. Our efforts were sort of programmed: monthly in-person event, annual conference, biweekly newsletter, search optimized how-to articles. And I did that for 10 years without really adapting the strategy almost at all.
So it works for some people then, is what?
Yeah.
just maybe it's different. I mean, COVID probably affected a lot of people who were doing certain types of content that just weren't going to work anymore because people didn't care at that point, right? So that's
Right.
why they had to adapt their strategies. So yeah, the other thing about content marketing is it's a long game, and there are so many people that come in and tell the CMO or the director of marketing or whatever, I want you to do content, but I want that content to bring me results tomorrow. I want that content to turn into leads, because content marketing does ultimately, it produces an audience or creates an audience, but it also, I think that a lot of executives think it's about getting me more leads in the door. And if it's not getting me leads 2 weeks after you publish an ebook, then it's not working. Like, trying to prove that business case can be really, really challenging.
Yeah, I had a conversation with Amanda Milligan from Fractal. Is she still there? I'm not sure. But it was about this. It was like, how do you get buy-in? How do you convince executives that this is a long-term investment? I think that there are opportunities to give the executives what they want, or the client what they want, and help them help them faster. There are a couple of kind of not really shortcuts, but opportunities. One of them is to produce bottom of funnel content. So if you find out that sort of like a conversion copywriter, if you find out by listening in on a lot of conversations that prospects all have a common question, and you haven't answered that question yet in your content, you can create a detailed piece and then give it to the reps to use in sales, and content can support the sales process.
Right.
So that's one where content can work hard, quick. But mostly, I think you can help persuade your executives or boss or clients by giving them FOMO. Show them the people who are winning, and ask, like, how come we're letting them have all the fun?
Right.
Just use a competitive analysis tool, and you can say, like, how come Orbit Media gets 1.5 million visitors a year and generates 900 leads a year without any advertising? How did they do that? Oh, they built a machine that creates demand through search optimization and content strategy. How long did it take them? Looks like about 6,000 hours. Okay. Would you like to spend 6,000 hours to create a machine that generates demand all day, every day for the rest of your career? Yeah, you would, right?
Yeah.
It does it. It works. It does generate leads. I mean, if you do it in a way where it leads to higher domain authority, and you have search optimized sales pages that rank for commercial intent key phrases, you will generate lots of leads. But it's, a lot of people just don't have the forethought to wait 1.5 years for outcomes, which makes it easier for the rest of us because we don't have to compete with them.
Yeah. They're always in a rush, always looking for that bottom line and that revenue goal that, content marketing will work if you do it and you take your time and do it the right way. Which kind of leads us then to lead generation. Do you think it's dead? Like, I mean, it's not dead. I know it's not dead realistically, but it can work well. I've seen less and less instances where I've seen that work well just because of the way it's been done. Is there something else that we can do that works better? Or do you not agree with that at all?
No, I love that question. By lead generation, do you mean like a marketing qualified lead, or just like the HubSpot definition of just any form submission?
Yeah, I probably would say it's more like the HubSpot, someone fills out a form, it's a lead. But even the marketing qualified lead, how do you figure out what's marketing qualified? It's so subjective. It drives the person crazy.
Well, right now, we could start here. Right now, as we speak, there is someone who's realizing they need your services, and someone else who's realizing they need my services. And they're sitting down in front of a browser, and they're opening a search engine, and now their fingers are moving toward the keyboard, and they're typing something, trying to find us. I'm very confident in saying that is happening at this very moment. It's almost certainly true, right? There's so many people, that's definitely happening. So they're seeing a search results page now. They're scanning through results. They're clicking on a website now. They're landing on a page. They're looking for trust and answers right now. They're clicking on a call to action or not. So leads are born millions of times a day, and there is an amazing amount of demand that you can generate with legitimate qualified leads. through good search and conversion optimization. You can build up your site, giving it a better chance of ranking for that valuable phrase through content marketing and growing your authority. So for the people that do it well, I think there's still huge opportunities. I will generate some marketing qualified leads at some point today, probably. It's 900 a year. So,
right. Yeah.
But if it's marketing qualified, you don't know yet anyway. So marketers don't get insights into what happens inside the CRM or at the sales meeting and who they're qualifying and disqualifying. So we have to try to bridge that gap a little bit if possible. There is one workaround that also executives might like. It's the account-based marketing approach, where you create a piece of content. So in our case, we use webinars, and then invite super qualified people through LinkedIn messages, manual LinkedIn messages, just outreach, and inviting people that we know, people who are in our pipeline from years ago or something, or just companies we've always wanted to work with. The webinar, we unveil a little bit of original research we did on their industry, having looked at a bunch of sites in that industry, give them some practical advice, do good follow-up. So 100% of the people at that webinar are qualified. They have a senior role. They're from a company that has a budget. They're a mature business. They're already doing, we've researched them. So that's called account-based marketing, and it is really, really fun. When you add content, I call it ABC marketing. It's account-based content marketing.
Right.
It's a way to ensure that virtually 100% of the people exposed to that content are potential prospects. It's so different and so fun.
I saw you do a presentation on that at the I want to say the B2B Marketing Exchange, and I was just fascinated by your approach overall, but also how you did the research to do the webinar, like how you did that research survey, because everyone says how important research is, but it can be complicated and you can be hard to get people to answer, but you did yours in a very different way. And I found your whole step-by-step approach just really fascinating and easy to implement.
Yeah. People think account-based marketing requires a big piece of software, a giant budget.
Yeah.
But that research piece is the one part of it. You put your finger right on it, Barb. It is it's not an easy to repeat tip. Oh, go create a tiny bit of custom research and do it efficiently and give it so you're making a statistic that's easy to share. And I think it would take, they need a strategist like you, someone to think through to create that piece. That part, it's not that prescriptive, but it works. It's been amazing for us. The ROI has been tremendous.
Yeah, I thought it was great. And I would suggest anyone to, I wrote about that for Diginomica, and I would suggest anyone. Actually, I'll put a link to that. I'm sure there's a replay of that webinar somewhere that we can put up there. But okay, so my last question for you, because I could probably ask you a million questions and we could be here all day, was something else I saw at the Content Marketing World. And a lot of people talked about that goldfish rule, that people are like goldfish and they forget. You've got one person said 1 second, one person said you had 4 seconds to get their attention. It's like, oh, okay. But then other people in the creativity track were saying it's more about creativity, that you don't think about. It's not about writing the perfect headline or the perfect structured SEO article. It's about being creative in how you get people's attention. Seemingly two very opposite things. Somehow they have to work together.
Yeah, I think it's possible to write stuff that is helpful but boring, and that's not ideal. It's possible to write stuff that is entertaining but not very practical. Yeah. That's also not that ideal in content marketing. We're not making like a TV show. We're you have to, trying to help people solve their own problems. So it is a challenge, but I really think that we need to leave this goldfish out of this. This poor goldfish just gets brought into all these conversations.
I know.
I'm looking at my Google Analytics and I'm scanning down the list of average time on page for the top 10 pages here. 7 minutes, 18 seconds, 6 minutes, 27 seconds, 8 minutes, 52 seconds, 6 minutes, 47 seconds. These are articles that we've written where the average time on page is north of 6 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big investment for people. That's a lot of time.
Yep.
So it's not, I think that worrying about your audience attention span is healthy insofar as it forces us to make our content very engaging, very visual, easy to scan. If you want to keep your visitor on your page, use lots of subheads, use short paragraphs, use bullet lists, add pictures, add contributor quotes, so that the scan reader, because they're all scanning, we said that already, 20 to 25% of the words, the scan reader is more likely to slow down and get some value from a section. So I worry about attention span. I live in fear of the back button, but the response to that for me is to try to make very pieces that are both extremely detailed and extremely scannable. So creativity, yes. Practicality, yes. But it's kind of the assembly process and the mechanics of putting a post together that is how I'm adapting.
I think the other piece to that is, if you know that you're reading the content or watching the content, whatever it might be, of someone on a regular basis, it's because they have captured your attention. They are offering you something. So you don't have to think of every piece of content as a one-off. And I've got to capture your attention for this one-off. I capture it the first time and the second time, but then this person knows that I'm a person they can come to and get really great content, and they will spend much more time on the page and stuff. So that's how I look at that.
I completely agree. I mean, there are people who would be angry if Anne stopped publishing her weekend newsletter.
I would be.
Yeah. So what does that say?
Yeah.
You know, that you trust that person, you know her voice, you read with an expectation about the tone and the topic. Yeah. So that is the ultimate advice, Barbara. It's a very important point, because the one thing that makes you secure and safe from changes in Google and social media and big tech is to build a brand and a reputation, and to do so through consistency and some form of differentiation. In Anne's case, she's just the most charming writer we've ever seen.
Yeah, an awesome speaker. So,
she is.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Andy. This was great. I really loved it. Like I said, we could probably talk for another hour, 2 hours. I would get lots of information from you, but we'll leave it there for now.
This was my pleasure. I'd be happy to chat again anytime.
Cool.